Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Amanda, and I want to welcome you to today's TechStrong learning experience. Welcome, and we are excited to have you join us today, especially since we're having the folks from GitHub and JFrog joining us today, which is going to be a great and insightful session. So thank you so much for joining us today. Just a few reminders before we dive into everything today. This session is being recorded and will be available afterward on demand. We will also send you a link to your inbox once we conclude today's live session to a link to review the recording on demand. So stay tuned for that. We also invite you to join us in the chat. Tell us where you're joining from, any other comments that you have on today's subject matter, and any questions that you have. Also, we invite you to use the chat. If you have questions, we recommend you use the Q&A panel. This can be found on the right side of your screen. If there are any questions that remain unanswered at the end of our session, we will do our very best to have the team from JFrog reach out to you to make sure that your questions are answered. So stay tuned for your email inbox if your questions don't get answered during this session. We also have some handouts available for download as well. These resources can be found under the resources panel on the left-hand side of your screen. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and kick off today's topic. Boost developer productivity with GitHub and JFrog, integration and action. I'm really excited for this talk. We've got two great speakers that are going to be joining us, and I'm going to pass it over to Dave from the team at GitHub to get us started with introductions and get us kicked off on this session.
I've had the pleasure of collaborating with Jonathan and his team over the last several months as these integrations have been built out, and we've been talking about it at various conferences, various venues, which we'll highlight here as we go on.
Absolutely. Hi, Dave, my partner in crime, let's say. We are meeting each other a lot during the last months in different countries. It's interesting. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Jonathan. I'm a developer advocate for JFrog. Been with JFrog for the last 8 years as a software developer, and afterwards became a team leader at the infrastructure team. And now I'm here as a developer advocate with JFrog, and with me, Dave.
Yes. I actually like to go by the title of senior DevOps advocate. I've been a DevOps junkie for a number of years now. So looking at that, we talk about software as being the world's largest team sport. Developers are heads down writing code, but it takes an entire team to envision, build, and release and secure software these days. So let me say, are we ready to dive in here, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think it's a time. Let's go.
Awesome.
So Dave, why we are here anyway? What are we going to talk about today?
So GitHub has become the backbone of enterprise DevOps tool sets. There's over 100 million registered users on GitHub today, but it's not just a single enclosed platform. We have broadened the ecosystem through APIs and various integrations today so that you can leverage best of breed tools like JFrog Artifactory and X-Ray and all that. So we want to show you how you can accelerate developer productivity by staying in the flow inside of the tools that you're using, and you don't have to be bouncing all around, to get your work done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the coolest thing here is that it's something that came bottom up. It came from the field, from our mutual customers that actually say, hey, both of you, best of breed in each domain, in the source code and in the binaries, we want you to work better together because we need a frictionless and a seamless experience for our developers. And we will explore everything today for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We take pride in listening to our customers and listening to the developers using GitHub and everything. So we do have our research teams that are bringing very new and innovative things to the market. Once they're there, we gather that feedback and say, okay, how can we really make this work for you?
Yeah. All right. So Dave, with no further ado, let's dive in.
Awesome. Yes. So let's dive in. We want to talk about shifting left with developer first tools, especially when we're talking about security and things like that. Now, this is an example of a typical developer workflow, right? There's our main branch, that blue line. I create a feature branch to add an enhancement. I commit some changes, I self-review my code, run through tests, maybe I do some refactoring, and then I create a pull request. And with that pull request, we've got automation set up to build, maybe do some linting or other quality checks, run all of our unit tests, do all of our scans and things to ensure that the code and everything is secure. And then Jonathan reviews my code and he says, hey, we want to make sure that's not going to crash on Black Friday. So maybe you should refactor that algorithm to make sure that it's going to be as robust and resilient as possible. And then we merge that code back into the main branch. So that's that typical developer workflow that we go through all the time. But we want to talk especially about bringing security right into this developer workflow. So it's not, we're sitting there as developers and all of a sudden the security team hands us this report of issues that we have to fix, but identifying those issues as we're pushing the code into GitHub with things like dependency scanning, making sure that all those open source packages that we're pulling in are free of known vulnerabilities, and secret scanning. Unfortunately, one of the leading causes of breaches is hard-coded API tokens, hard-coded passwords, and other things being found in configuration files, code, binaries, etc. We want to make sure you're keeping those things out of your software. And then as developers, we're not inherently security experts. We're writing new code. We may not realize that that code could be vulnerable to SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or a lot of those vulnerabilities that are found in the OWASP top 10 and things like that. So we want to help ensure that we're keeping those things out of the code. And the idea here is with the built-in security tools, we want to detect and remediate vulnerabilities before new code is introduced into the main branch for the first time. But this is an area where we now have integrations with GitHub. Jonathan, you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So you talked about all the risk and issue that might comes up in our source code, but we can clearly see why it's also important to take care of your binaries at this stage. At this stage, and not only on the right side where you already build and package your software, but even from the most left side, when you choose the packages that you use, who build these packages? Are they safe? Do they comply with my organization? I mean, we need to know all this stuff. And that's why JFrog, together with GitHub, we combined end to end, and we give you all this information at the most left side, at the place where you manage your source code. And we will see it afterwards in a demo. But we understood that we need to combine ourselves all along the way, not only on the right side, but starting from the left side, hand to hand, together with GitHub.
And with the integrations we've built, so here's a snapshot of the overall GitHub platform, right? You see up there towards the top, the source control management, SCM. GitHub started out as the home of open source, but over the last 5-6 years, we've really built out the capabilities of GitHub to include productivity tools like GitHub Copilot, leveraging AI to generate code and help you fix bugs and help you understand your code bases, and continuous integration, continuous deployment with GitHub Actions, which is now the most widely used CI/CD tools for code that lives in GitHub. Bringing these security tools, and even more than the code scanning and things we've talked about, providing a nice security overview, a single pane of glass. So regardless of whether the security checks are coming from GitHub or other tools like JFrog X-Ray. And we're reaching such a large audience with the scale of GitHub, right? But A key thing here also is it's not just a single enclosed platform. It's really now the largest DevOps ecosystem. And when we look at that ecosystem and we see all of these green bubbles here, these are all the places where we now have integrations between GitHub and JFrog.
Yep.
And last May, we launched the partnership between GitHub and JFrog, and this enables developers to manage code and binaries more efficiently on two of the world's most widely used developer platforms in the world. And together, we've built an integration that includes intuitive navigation and traceability between source code and binaries, and CI/CD with GitHub Actions and JFrog Artifactory, and a unified view of security findings across the software supply chain. And we're accelerating this joint vision of making developers' lives easier and happier, enabling you to stay in the flow without having to switch context all the time.
Yeah, so actually 2 months ago in Texas, Shlomi Ben Chaim, JFrog CEO, stood on the stage and announced the collaboration with GitHub, and we talked about the partnership. And the thing is that it's not just one feature, it's a process between JFrog and GitHub that keeps evolve and add more and more features with the time in order to bring this seamless experience. And if we will take a look at the full map of the integration, I mean, this is kind of the vision or the overview of this collaboration. And it all starts with the IDE, of course, where the developer write his code. But you can see that along the way, there are some places where we can collaborate. And of course, on the bottom, you can see end-to-end advanced security with GitHub Advanced Security and JFrog Advanced Security. And also the Copilot extension for JFrog, which we will demo this later, and you will see how cool it is to just ask AI about your binaries and about your organization. And moving forward, it will evolve for distribution and runtime. So you will have the full traceability from the left side to the right side where your software and your application is running. And you will be able to govern and understand everything from GitHub. And why it is important? Because your application, actually, 90% of this line of codes in your application is built by others. We fetch binaries, we fetch dependencies, third-party dependencies, which has their own third-party dependency, and so on and so on. So we understand that many parts of our application, I mean, the majority is not built by us, and we need to secure it and we need to govern it. And I mean, where I live, it's almost night, but I guess it's morning where you live. And if you wanna wake up and you're feeling a little tired, try pushing a secret to a public registry. And why am I telling you that? Because I want to tell you a story. Actually, a story that happened. It happened with a Python maintainer, which means that he has an admin access to all Python organization, PyPI, potentially can affect millions of devices and applications around the world. And this guy, like any other developer, developed something on his machine, and he created a build py file, which is a Python file, and this is his source code. And he wanted to work with GitHub, so he had to use his own token in order to be able to make a lot of requests and not pass the rate limit. So we included his GitHub token hard-coded inside his source code. And during this process, he compiled the file, which in Python creating a PYC file that is kind of a caching file sitting right aside to the build py. It's a mirror file, but just it's a binary file. It's not something that human can read. But as I said before, it's a mirror file, so it of course had the same token inside, but in a binary way. Okay, so he was able to track down this this token that he has on the build py file because he did scan his source code. However, he didn't scan his binaries. What eventually result that he moved on, he pushed all the changes, he containerized his image, and with the CI process, it went all the way to the public container registry out there of Docker Hub, and it was sitting there for more than a year. Just think about it. An admin token to the Python organization and PyPI sitting there just waiting someone to pick this key to the kingdom and can do very bad stuff all around the world. Luckily, one of the JFrog researchers, as part of our drink our own champagne, we train and we test our tools on a real hubs, and he was able to find the key on an image. And then he checked who published this image, and he saw that it's one of the Python maintainers. So he took this token and he tried to do some stuff, to read some stuff from the Python organization, and was able to do that. So the bells started to ring. Of course, immediately we disclosed the issue to the Python team, and within 9 minutes, they revoked the token and everything went back to safe. And don't feel bad if you don't scan your binaries yet, because according to the State of Union, only 56% scan both source code and binaries. I mean, I just told the story and it's not a made up story. You can search for it on Google, Python token leak. You will find many articles about it. And also JFrog is mentioned in these articles. And this is why I want to emphasize the importance of scanning source code, what we can read, but also what the machine or the hacker can read, which is your binaries.
So today, GitHub Actions are continuous integration, continuous deployment tools. This is the most popular tool set for CI/CD for code that lives in GitHub. And it's great for builds and deployment, but you can use it a lot more than you can use those workflows for a lot more than just CI/CD. There's over 20 different events to allow you to do things. So even things like when a security incident's turned into an issue, you can use GitHub Actions to sync that information back over to tools like Azure Boards or Jira or that, so that you've got all that information in one place. And it's simple, easy to use YAML workflows, especially when you bring GitHub Copilot into the mix. You can have Copilot help you identify what actions to pull in from the marketplace, such as JFrog and things like that. And when we talk about that marketplace, go search in the marketplace and you'll see JFrog there with the with Frogbot and set up for JFrog and everything. So make it very easy to combine things in. And I want to say JFrog's done a fantastic job of integration with GitHub Actions. So you see a nice, beautiful summary of all the information there, even before you launch into Artifactory itself.
Yeah, of course, we'll show see it in a demo.
Yep, exactly. And then the other thing I want to talk about briefly, GitHub Copilot. This has become the world's most widely adopted AI developer tool. We had some exciting announcements last week at GitHub Universe. Definitely encourage you to check those out. But just to kind of level set everybody here, let's kind of talk about the history of Copilot. Started out as extensions to popular integrated development environments, IDEs like Visual Studio Code and the JetBrains families of IDEs and Visual Studio, enabling you to type a few comments and have Copilot generate, entire blocks of code for you and things like that. And then we evolved to add a chat panel right into the IDEs, and you can leverage that to say, hey, I don't know this code very well. It's not very documented very well. Can you explain this code to me? Or leveraging AI to do things like propose fixes for bugs or generate a set of unit tests, things like generating unit tests and things like that takes away that drudgery of development so we can focus on the bigger picture and things like that. But we didn't stop there. We also brought GitHub Copilot to github.com itself. So now I can ask questions about the entire repository, or I can even ask about issues in GitHub or security alerts, or get summaries of pull requests and things like that. So our goal with AI is to make AI ubiquitous throughout the GitHub platform. And a key with this is GitHub Copilot extensions that we've launched recently. And GitHub Copilot extension brings the world's knowledge into the most widely adopted AI developer tool. And through this growing partner ecosystem, Copilot extensions enable developers to build and deploy to the cloud in their natural language with their preferred tools and services, all without leaving the IDE or github.com. And this really helps developers to stay in the flow longer and up-leveling their skills and allowing them to innovate faster.
All right, so
All right.
I think it's time to demo and to show we walk the walk, let's talk the talk. So
Absolutely.
I'll share my screen. Let me just get it right here. And you will tell me if you can see my screen. All right. Can you see my screen, right? Feel like I'm in a Zoom chat or something. Amazing. Okay, great. Okay, so here I am at the GitHub platform, as most of you probably recognize. And I want to start with talking about the OIDC, which stands for OpenID Connect, which is kind of a wrapper around OAuth. And we understood that using token is not that healthy because there might be some different issues. The token might get expired, it can be accidentally revoked, or maybe it got to someone's hands, it was compromised, and you want to revoke it intentionally. And that's why using a long-lived constant token is never a good idea. If you can use a short-lived token, then it's a better idea. And that's where JFrog used GitHub OIDC in order to make a frictionless connection of the JFrog CLI inside the GitHub Actions, and I will show you an example. So I want to go first to the before integration picture, how it was look. So I'll go into this build application YAML, and as you can see here, this is the old way how we used the JFrog CLI. So I'm actually passing a JF access token that, as you know, sits under the settings, the secret, and the token. So I have an hard-coded token that sits somewhere out there. And now, with the new way to do that is by using OIDC. And by saying using OIDC, so as you can see right here, I'll mark it. So no more token to set up the JFrog CLI. We use something else. With the JFrog CLI, and it must be version 4, we add some argument called OIDC provider name, and it's called JFrog GitHub OIDC. Now, that's all you need to do in order to have your CLI ready to work with your JFrog platform. And let me show you how it looks behind the scene. You only need to do a one-time establishment of the integration with the OIDC. Under the administration tab, you go to the general management, manage integration. And here you can see I have many different integration, but I will go to this JFrog GitHub OIDC. As you can see, the provider name is JFrog GitHub OIDC that I created. Sounds familiar? It's this one, JFrog GitHub OIDC. And I can see the provider URL, it's GitHub, it's coming from Action, so everything is validated, of course, and passed all the security and penetration testing, so it's all very safe to use. And I can click on the show snippet, so it will give you a snippet, just copy and paste, and you are ready to go. And down there, you can see the identity mapping. And if I'll go and edit this identity mapping, you can see something interesting. So we can see that we have priority. So we can set several types of identity mapping and do priority. So the one that matched will be invoked. And here you have the claim JSON. And what happened that at the moment we try to make this authentication, it check all the details. So the issuer is GitHub, and the repository is my repository that I'm showing you the example. When this is true and everything is matched with the key and values, it goes down and it creates a token. And the cool thing about it is that it's a short-lived token that will not be relevant after this time that you set will pass. And by that, you guarantee that your token won't be compromised and it's safe. You can choose a different token scope, whether it's an admin, user, group, user mapping. Feel free to check about it later. You can check about it also in our blog. So this is the OIDC, and now we see how easy it is to connect JFrog and GitHub. And the next thing that I want to talk with you about is and Dave mentioned it, is the summary. And I'm really proud with this summary because it really gives you a picture and the understanding what happened during your job running. So we can see here, this summary is created automatically by the CLI, and it tells the whole story. So it tells that we published a JFrog build during the job. We also scan it for security issue, which has quite a lot, but we have no watch defined, so we have no violations, of course. And also it tells you what modules you published during this process. So we see that we created 2 Docker images in 2 different architectures, AMD 64 and ARM 64. And we also published some NPM package. Sounds interesting. And that's not only that, because we also guarantee the continuity by providing a bidirectional links. So for example, I can click on this link and it will take me to the build info page where I can get more info about what happened during this job running. I can get some insightful data about the build info and get what kind of environment variable were initiated and version, many different details that is very important. And I said bidirectional because you can see here at the top, you have this link, and clicking it will immediately take me back to where we started. Isn't it cool, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is such a great example of GitHub really putting a lot of thought into their integration. You can see we're looking at the GitHub Actions summary page right here, but there's an incredible wealth of information from JFrog right on this page, with the links to dive in and get more information if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as said before, it's already evolving, and you will shortly see what I'm talking about. So I talk about this summary and bidirectional, but as you can see here in the security tab in GitHub, you actually get both of best world. You get the GitHub scanning. Here is the CodeQL scanning, but you also get some results from JFrog X-ray scanner. So we can get info about our binary scanning, and we can see exactly where it was located. And also, if you are entitled with JFrog Advanced Security, you will get the contextual analysis, which can tell you if you should wake up at 1 a.m. or not. And in this case, it's a critical vulnerability. However, it's not applicable for your application, so you can make a better triage. And not only that, under the tools, you can filter, and you see that we have this binary secret scanner. And here we can go and we see we actually have 3 secrets somewhere in our binaries. And if we'll press one of them, so here we can see this PYC. Remember what happened with the guy from Python? So I actually restored the situation, and I got this scanning result. So it tells me exactly, giving the evidence of what it was found. So we did some reverse engineering and was able to track it down. And also it told me the exact location where it is located, so I can act immediately, and I don't need to be on the JFrog platform. I get all the information already inside GitHub, which is amazing. And I think that the whole story is that we're not intending to give you some quick link and just go and come to our restaurant. We understand that you need to have this information at a very early stage on the left side, and we're bringing everything from the right side, and it makes very sense to put it on the left side in GitHub.
And this is a great example of how, by providing this single pane of glass of security tools, GitHub inherently has dependency scanning, code scanning, etc., but we don't have the binary scanning. So bringing in JFrog binary scanning, we're providing, more end-to-end security checks under a single umbrella, under a single pane of glass.
Yeah, right. And as said, it's all this integration and collaboration is keep evolving and developing. And this is where I come to tell you about the JFrog runtime. So if you remember this summary page, now we have some enhanced summary page with these little badges that actually tell me if this module is running in my production environment. So thanks to JFrog runtime security, we're now able to trace down and understand if our modules running in production already on GitHub side. So just think about it. You have a vision to see from the most left side of your development. You can now see to the most right side. And if we will click this link, so we will see that it immediately will take us into the platform where we see all the results of my assessments. And here we can see that we have an image named JFrog demo service and has some vulnerabilities. Of course, we can go and get a lot of information about this vulnerability. And yeah, in my environment, I don't have contextual analysis. Yeah, it's a shame, but of course, if I will have a contextual analysis, it will tell me also if it's applicable on me or not. So this is about the runtime. You can also see you can get more information about the sensor management and see what's going on. So I see that I have a cluster with 3 running nodes, it's Kubernetes clusters, and of course I can get lots of information about my runtime. Now, we talked about AI, right, Dave? So why not let's speak a bit with Copilot. So the great thing about extension with the Copilot is that now Copilot is getting more power by leveraging extension and other third parties that can bring that can bring in their information to the Copilot. So here you can see I initialize the JFrog extension and I can start asking questions. So in my case, I will ask a question, for example, about Axios package, which is a very popular NPM package for HTTP request, and it's an HTTP client. So I will first ask questions like, is my org use Axios? So thanks to this extension, you can now get a full insight and understanding about your binaries. And we see that it comes with an answer that yes, my organization is using Axios. And it also gives me the specific version of the Axios that I have in my organization. And I become greedy and I will ask, where exactly are they located? And forgive me if I have some grammar issue, but what I love about Copilot is that it doesn't matter. I mean, you can come from any part of the world. You don't need to have a perfect English and it will understand you, and it's like a magic. Okay, so it gives me the repositories that I have and tells me exactly where my Axios packages are located, and I can click on it and of course get into my environment and see and get more info about who download this package and how it's being used in my organization. And I just want to emphasize that I'm doing everything from the GitHub platform, which is amazing. I'm in the flow. It's keeping me in the flow. I can do it from the IDE as well, which they will later show you. But let's move on. I want to now leverage the power of the security and ask, are they secure? Because I want to understand if any of them has maybe a security vulnerability. And it will go and using JFrog catalog, it will be able to bring me all the answers. And it tells me now, as you can see, that 1.74 has no known vulnerabilities. However, 1.5 does have. So I just want to understand if, okay, so it means that my organization is now exposed to something, maybe not, but let's check. They blocked by my organization, or it will even make more sense to ask about 1.50. But you know what? This is what I like about AI. I don't plan it. I just ask the question and hope that everything will be fine. So we now go and it will check what's going on. So it tells me that 1.74 is approved by my organization and 1.50 is blocked by in the devrel npm repository. So it tells me that it blocked specific repository. And now I want to understand why. And this is because of my curation policy that, as you can see here, I have a curation that with an action of block. And if, for example, I will change it to dry run, I will save the policy on the JFrog platform. I will go back and say, can you check again? Let's cross our fingers. And of course, yeah, and now everything is approved. With only one change, immediately, it doesn't need to wait for any refresh. It tells me everything immediately on spot. And Dave, I gotta say, every time I see it, I'm taking off my hat to both, by the way, GitHub and JFrog for making these things happen. It's super amazing and important to have this governance.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's so much power that JFrog brings. And now that we have these Copilot extensions, we can stitch everything together and provide so much value there.
Yeah.
All right. So Jonathan was talking about how we, doing things with something that's already in the works. Now, I'm going to go through a little different scenario. The story I'm going to tell is of a developer who's new to the project and has been tasked with, we've been talking about ways to use AI, but people are now wanting to infuse AI into their solutions as well. So let me share my screen and jump into my demo area here. So I'm going to kind of expand the story a little bit. Development's a team sport. So it probably starts,
Right.
Many are using Jira or Azure boards for planning and tracking and everything. And, to get these nice layouts and everything. And if I dive into my Kanban board, a couple of things I can point out here. You can get things all stitched together so that even those security issues can show up in your right in your Kanban boards and things. But what I want to focus on now is I've been tasked with investigating how to add AI into our application. And yet right here from Azure boards, I was able to create a new branch, and we see that linked here and everything. But now if I dive into working on the code itself, here I am in, this new branch. And I want to start, working with Copilot here in Visual Studio Code itself. And again, I'm new to this repo. I'm new to this workspace. And we can see all of the participants, all of the extensions here that are available to me, such as the JFrog extension. But, we're also talking about using Docker. Maybe we want to, turn information in our projects into nice charts and that. But there's also some built-in participants. And one I'm going to use here is the @workspace participant. So I'm going to start out again. I'm new to the project, so I first need to understand, what's in this project, what's in this workspace. Help me understand the tech stack. And so Copilot's going to go through that entire workspace and everything, and give me, an overview. Okay, we're using Vue.js, and on the back end, we've got Express.js, and for testing, we're using things like Playwright. We can see that we're using GitHub Actions and Docker, and we can see some of the dependencies that are getting pulled in here. We can see that the dependencies are ultimately coming from NPM, but I'm hoping that we have sort of our own cache so that we can vet all of those dependencies first rather than pulling them directly from the public systems. So here we can see, yes, in fact, we are using JFrog Artifactory based on the information that's found in the workspace and everything here. So now, we say, okay, I want to add AI here, and we're using Azure as our cloud hosting environment. So I want to see, are there any services available in Azure to add OpenAI into my application? So now we're using the Azure extension. So reaching out to learn more from Azure itself. And there we go. We can say, okay, OpenAI is one of the available services there. Great, that's fantastic. Now let me go back to JFrog, because I want to ask JFrog, because of its wealth of information in its catalog and everything, what are the most popular libraries for working with Azure OpenAI service? Now we can see it's working with that JFrog extension. Again, I'm staying in the flow. I didn't have to go to the Azure documentation or the Azure marketplace. Fantastic. Azure OpenAI and the identity service and everything. But you know what? Let's say we're in the financial services industry. One of the things I love about the JFrog catalog and everything is I can even get more precise recommendations here to say what's the most popular packages in the financial services industry specifically. And it comes back and says, just Azure OpenAI. So great. I know this is what I want to add into my system now. But I also want to ask JFrog, can you tell me if there's any known security vulnerabilities in that Azure OpenAI service? Is it secure? And as it's thinking about it, and it'll come back and let us know that the Azure OpenAI service has no known vulnerabilities and it is considered secure. So now that I've got all this context built up and everything, I can go back to Copilot itself and say, hey, Copilot, how do I get started adding the Azure OpenAI service into this application? And it's going to come back and give me, a narrative to do all of this and show me the exact commands I need to install it, even give me a snippet of code to start calling Azure OpenAI and everything. So I can go back and maybe put this information into that user story as kind of the recipe for what I need to do to make these changes. But one other thing here I'm going to point out for Jonathan's benefit. This to me in Hebrew.
Oh, nice.
There we go. I can't read that, but does that look right, Jonathan?
It doesn't matter whatever I will tell you, you will have to believe me. But yeah, it's giving me the precise answers, and it's amazing. And it's funny because it's actually something that Brian, Paul colleague, surprised me on stage and say, "Hey, Jonathan, why just ask him in Hebrew?" And I did. And translating this technical English to Hebrew is more hard than you think. So anyway,
This is amazing. So
But this is amazing.
let me show this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. We're doing okay on time here. One other thing I want to show briefly, if I come back here, we talked about, the security overview and having this single pane of glass and everything here. Now, let me think. Hopefully, if I go in and look at, not the depend about alerts. I want to look at the code alerts in here. And I've got one for this missing cross-site request forgery token. So as a developer, I'm not a security expert. I may not know how I need to change my code. But look at what's happened here. Copilot has already generated a fix for me. So I can see the differences here. And, I can look at that and say, hey, does that look good enough? If so, maybe I just go ahead and commit that code. Or maybe I want to, pull this update into my workspace and test it out and everything. Now, one of the exciting things that's in the works right now, and we announced this at Universe, is that Copilot Autofix now supports partner code scanning tools. And JFrog is, in fact, one of the ones that's on the short list to be added to this. So we're just going to continue adding value with our integrations and everything here.
Right, and I saw the development of this feature, and it's in beta at the moment, and we already have a beta customers that use that, and it's amazing. It will be GA pretty soon. There are a lot of things that we can talk about, and the time is so short, to demo all the great stuff. But Dave,
let's kind of summarize what we saw here, and then we can get into the Q&A. So I think what we saw is that the whole is really greater than the sum of the parts. GitHub's evolved from a platform for managing source code into the backbone or the hub of thousands of enterprises' DevOps tool chains. And we now have these first-class integrations with best-of-breed tools like JFrog, Docker, Azure Boards, Azure, Jira, many more. And this allows you to stay in the flow to move quickly and efficiently and confidently with less context switching. And with Copilot extensions, you can gain access to tool-specific AI to supercharge your productivity. And we're enabling you to shift security left by detecting and remediating vulnerabilities before new code and binaries are introduced into your main branch. All right. So
I just want to kind of repeat myself, but I think that what's so great about all this is that, again, it wasn't a marketing move. Okay, I'm developer advocate. I'm not a marketing person. I'm very bad at it. But the thing is that it came out of necessity of our customers, of our developers, and seeing it evolving with the time, it's so amazing. And the collaboration with GitHub is great, and the partnership is flowing. I mean, keeping in the flow, how you say, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Helping keep developers in the flow, less context switching. Like that example I went to in the past, I'd have to go search the Azure documentation or do Google searches to say, how do I add AI into my application? And then, trying to be proactive on security. I'd have to then go over to JFrog and look at the catalog and stuff, but I'm able to do all of that and just stay in the flow and be more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
All right. We do have, as Mackenzie mentioned, there are a number of resources in the handouts tab there. Things like JFrog put together a fantastic page of information about all of our integrations and everything. So definitely check that out, plus the other resources and things.
Thank you all for attending our webinar. If you have any remaining questions, feel free to ask them in the chat before we wrap up, or reach out to us afterwards. We'll be more than happy to assist. Have a great day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to our speakers today from JFrog and GitHub for helping us and guiding us through this session on this topic. It's been great and insightful. So thank you to them for joining us today. Just a few quick reminders before we close out this session. We thank you for all of your questions today. Again, just a reminder, if anything is left unanswered, don't worry. Keep an eye on your inbox. We will make sure that we get any questions that have not been answered today in this session over to our team and over to the team at JFrog, and they will happily answer those questions for you. So don't fret if we didn't get to your questions today. We also invite you to please click our survey. This can be found in the resources section as well. It's just about 1 to 2 minutes of your time, and it's completely invaluable to us. It helps us create great content and programs just like this. So feel free to take that as well. And then last but not least, I want to thank both of our speakers from GitHub and JFrog for joining us today. This has been quite an insightful session, and it has been a wonderful session. So thank you so much to them for joining us. And it's been a pleasure having both of you. And with that being said, we want to thank all of you for joining this TechStrong learning experience, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.